Hey everyone, good evening, or whenever you're listening to this later, not live. Those of you that are live, thanks for joining in. This is Talkin' Shop with Outlier Firefighters. I am Alex Tanner. I'm here with my guest. This is episode 35. I'm with Mike Dovel. He's a lieutenant with Countryside Fire Protection District. Wow, that was one breath.
Big
And
name.
yeah, we're going to be talking tonight, talking shop. Obviously, that's the point. So, Mike, thanks for coming on the show. I'm really excited to have you on. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, thanks, man.
We've been intersecting a lot with classes and that kind of stuff, and it's pretty cool to get you to come on and share some of your experience. So, with that said, you want to just roll right into it and do some questions?
Yeah, you tell me, man.
So, usually start with where you come from, your first exposure to the fire service, and how'd you get to where you are. So your first exposure being like not a fireman, right? And I don't know if you're multi-generational or anything like that, but when was the first exposure that you had to the fire service?
So I'm not multi-generational. My dad was in the military, retired out of the Navy 27 years. But my first exposure was Waukegan Fire Explorers. I got hooked up with them at a junior in high school, attended Libertyville, and hung out with those guys. And that was my first taste of it. I had realized that college at the time really wasn't for me, um, and fell in love with the fire service. I got hired at Libertyville in 2002, shortly right after high school. Worked there for a couple of years, part-time contract with PSI at their company that they had at the time, and then moved on to Countryside in 2006. So that was my beginning of my career.
And how did you just thought maybe it'd be cool to go be an explorer and see that, or
No,
what
there
what
was
kind of drew you?
yeah, a kid in high school actually was a part of it. And I don't know how he found out about it, but he's like, yeah, I'm hanging out at Waukegan. They got this Explorer post. We get to put on the gear, and they got a training house behind their one station. I think it's Station One off of 120, and we got to do some training there. And he kind of explained it all to me, and I was like, oh, let me go check this thing out. So I went with him, and that was all she wrote.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I jumped in head first and haven't looked back.
I mean, how old were you when you first joined
I
up
was
with
a
that?
junior in yeah,
So
junior in high school, so 16, 17. And then I did that for a couple of years until I got hired at Libertyville. Part-time, went to the Quad 2 Academy up there in Antioch.
yeah.
Yep. And yeah, paramedic school shortly after that, and then hired at Countryside in 2006.
And your progression through Countryside. So you're a lieutenant now. Um,
Yep.
and how long? What kind of process was it? So like obviously some departments, like engineer would be a tested position, or like maybe you'd be on the ambulance and then you'd move to an engine or something like that. What was your progression through to get to where you are now?
So we didn't have tested engineers. We still don't, but 3 years on the job or 3 years off probation is the requirement for us to be able to test for lieutenant. I took it as quick as I could, ended up placing well, and I was promoted in 2012. It was your typical promotional process of an interview, assessment center, written test, ascertain merit, things along those lines. But early in my career, I like to go to classes and try and get exposed to all that our job had to offer.
And we're definitely going to talk about classes, obviously, because you're an instructor with IFSI and a lot of classes down there, and so we're definitely going to talk about that. In fact, I added a new question for my closing questions, thinking about you, so I'm going to change that up a little bit. But well, cool. So, I mean, you're where you're at now. Where are you thinking about maybe taking it? I know we've talked a little bit. Maybe you were going to consider taking the test for the next position up and some of those things. So, where's your head at with your future forecasting, right?
Well, we just posted the reading material and the requirements for our next process. So we test for lieutenant and battalion chief at the same time. So I'm just now getting the books going, studying things along those lines to get prepared for our process, which will be in the late summer, early fall. So yeah, I do have a desire to become a battalion chief. I think that would be a great thing for me, and I really enjoy doing it.
Great, awesome. So uh, when you were young in the career, right, and you first got on, even if it was Libertyville part time, wherever, who was somebody that was like a standout that influenced you early in your career when you were a kid?
So my mom, friend of hers from high school was Bob Kleinheinz. And I know you know him
Yeah.
through your job, and he was always there with me at Libertyville early on and kind of helped guide me a little bit, gave me the feedback that I needed I needed to hear early on. Didn't always take the advice, but he was there. He was a standout guy that was kind of there for me throughout that my time there. And then just some guys that are there that are still on the job, kind of had a huge influence on me. Um, I remember one guy, Greg Gratz, he's now retired from there, and I didn't really know what the union was, and I just knew that firemen had those stickers on the back of their car. And I said, I want one of those stickers. Where do I get one? And they let me know how to get one of those stickers, and because I was just naive, I didn't know any better, and they were able to kind of educate me on their journey to their organization and things along those lines. But just that naiveness in there, and they did it in their eloquent way of aligning a young 19-year-old kid who didn't know any better.
Yeah. No, that's funny. I didn't. I grew up around it. And I didn't know what those stickers were, and I remember figuring that out. Like
Yeah.
a couple of kids my age when I was in Antioch were starting to put them on their cars, and people were looking at them weird, like, "Why are you putting that on there? You're not." And I remember I asked the old man. I was like, "What is that?" He's like, "Oh no, that's union. Like you guys. I mean, you could put it on your car, but it probably wouldn't
Yeah.
fare so well for you, right? Like that's like what is that? False valor or something from? It's not quite to
Stolen
that
valor or
extent.
whatever.
Stolen valor.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah, obviously not that extreme, but um, yeah, it's funny how little things like that people have no idea, and then you get into it, and there's all these little intricacies, right?
Yes. And I was that kid, that had the big pickup truck with all the stickers on the back. And I mean, just a typical, like, that was my identification as a young, person in the fire service.
Yeah,
And as you go through your career, you kind of evolve and mature a little bit, and you kind of look back and kind of giggle at it.
yeah. I mean, you find a balance or something for sure. Like it's interesting. Like when I was in Antioch, there were a lot of people that were fantastic, obviously, and fed the hungry people. But there were some that would try to like, stifle you a little bit, right? They would teach you how to handle things a better way, but they would almost be like, hey, don't take this too seriously. It's just a whatever. And I learned to kind of reject that a little bit. And I don't know if you kind of went through something like that too, where you found a way to uh, change the way that you present your love and passion for the job.
Yeah, it's everyone talks about the generation that we have coming into our job now, and it is definitely different. I was raised in the generation of sit down, shut up. This is the way we've always done it. You don't ask questions. To now having a generation of people asking a lot of questions, and early on we didn't have the access to the information that we do now by the click of a couple buttons. So we have to approach things differently when it comes to how we're interacting with some of our newer members and things along those lines. But yeah, I was raised in a time where you didn't wear your chin strap, your helmet would be thrown across the parking lot, yelled at, belittled, and things like that, where you just had to just ride that storm until it passed and then try and do different next time. Now it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's maybe for the better. I mean, there's some things right that have to have some corrective action, right? But I feel like some of that is a positive, right? That we're a little more aware about asking, or I'm sorry, answering questions more so, right? But
Yeah,
um,
yeah, totally agree with that.
no. So that's kind of leading into like our first little like question, specifically for you. I also want to say, so those of you that are watching live, you could throw questions in for Mike, and I'll pull them and we'll ask him too. So it's interactive, and I try to remind people if you're watching, please like throw questions in, and we'll see if we can work them in. But the first one, so we were kind of talking about channeling your energy and making it positive. So I know a number of young firefighters for sure that come in really, really hungry, want to work really hard, and want to know everything they can, right? And I know that can sometimes rub people the wrong way. I was one of them. I know that for sure. And I can think of a handful right now, like on my own organization, that are like that. So what would you say, for taking that energy and reframing it in a way where it's more received so you get what you need out of it, right? Where you're getting the knowledge from people, but you're not, you know, making them not want to give you the information essentially.
Yeah, so it comes down to the delivery, right? I mean, we go to these classes, we work on suburban departments that don't see a lot of work or the fire duty that other departments have. And we go to these classes and we come back and we're like, man, we got to change the world. And these are the things that we got to do. And it comes down to the delivery of it. I mean, I am very guilty of early on in my career going to a class and coming back and just preaching two and a half left and right on why we need to go do these things. And it just it doesn't get received because again, part of it's the generation of how it's being delivered. But the other part of it too is that what merit do you have behind it? You can't just come in and say, we're going to do this without preparing a plan of how you want to implement it. And does it even fit the organization? And maintaining that passion is just continuing to go to classes, but realizing that everyone has nuggets to give. And if we're always that one that's barking and complaining and trying to force these changes on there, like at some point people just kind of tune you out. And I ran into that. I mean, I did early on in my career of going to these classes saying, we need to do this, we need to do that. And it wasn't met very well. And, you get frustrated, they get frustrated, and it's just kind of a wasted effort when, if it would have been packaged up correctly or done in the right manner, by kind of keeping quiet about it. And then when an opportunity presents itself, you can say, hey, we're talking about hose loads. Let me check out, I learned this new hose load here that's kind of cool. Let me see, let me show you guys this thing. Or when we're doing extrication, hey, I learned this in a class. Like, can I show you guys a different way to do the dash roll or whatever it may be? There's times to present those things, but just coming back and preaching everything is like that refined smoker who's just quit and now telling everybody how bad it is for him. I mean, people just kind of look at it and be like, "What are you doing?" So
So
it is a bit of a challenge, and it's hard to not mean to get discouraged on that, to get turned off by that.
what are some like I don't know, like either phrases or maybe just even just words of a mindset to have when you're approaching those conversations? So you come back, you learn some awesome stuff from some great people, and you want to expose people to it, right? What are some ways, and even just like key phrases that can kind of help? Like that's, and maybe I'm not asking that question properly, but I can elaborate if you need to, or if you get it, then go for it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you're looking for.
So sometimes when you go take a class, especially a leadership class, they'll give you like a nugget of like a phrase, you know what I mean? That kind of like sparks something in people where they realize that you're not being abrasive towards it, right? That you're more collaborative, like in my opinion, or is this making you uncomfortable? Like those kinds of phrases. You know what I mean? Is there any
Yeah,
way
like I
that you
mean, can I
can?
dem yeah, maybe like can I demonstrate this?
Absolutely. Okay.
With drags and carries, RIT stuff. Okay, can I demonstrate a different way to apply the RIT pack? Can I show you guys a little cool technique that is on how to throw this ladder? Like, kind of in that manner of saying, can I show you guys a different way? Not saying that the current way is wrong, but let me just try and show you something different, a different method to approach something. Because at the end of the day, right, we just want to meet the objective. And you might meet the objective a different way than I do, but if we meet the objective, we met what we're looking to accomplish. So it comes down to just that delivery of it in a kind training, like just, hey, let me show you this, not preaching it of this is what we need to be doing type of a thing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So you've kind of hinted at it already, and I one of the themes that I have with this show is about personal growth, right? And being open about like mistakes and things like that. And um, you know, you've been very forthcoming, at least in the conversations that you and I have had, right, about what you've learned from and how you've grown as a person. So maybe share some anecdotes on that about like how important it is to change your mindset and to adjust things as you've grown as a fireman.
Well, sometimes we don't know that we're on the wrong path until you are reminded it, by an external factor. And when I got hired, in 2006, I wanted to go to fires, and I went to all these classes, and I was aggressive, and I wanted to demonstrate that, that I could do the job, and that I was, dependable. But in that, I ruffled a lot of feathers in the wrong way, and I burned some bridges, and I was that pain in the butt fireman that just undermined my officers and undermined my administration. And I thought that my way was better. And uniform shirts, I didn't feel like I needed to wear one because, I got to take it off before I put my turnouts on. And I just was that thorn in my organization's side and my boss's sides. And I can remember going to fires, responding to a fire, and as I'm driving the engine and I'm screaming at the officer, like, you tell me how to get there, I'll get us. You don't tell me how to drive. And looking back on it, just how ignorant that behavior was. And then, I tested well enough. I got promoted to lieutenant. And then my mindset was taking care of the guys at all costs. It didn't matter. I want to take care of the guys. I want to be a guy's boss. And in doing that, I burned a lot of bridges with my other lieutenants on different shifts, right? Because, I had a nickname of Dovel's house and no blouse. And when guys would work on a different shift, they'd be like, well, Dovel doesn't make us wear our uniforms. Why are you doing that? And it made my coworkers' jobs difficult in enforcing the rules because I didn't do that. Um, and then it came down to 2021. I found myself in a meeting with all my chiefs, and I was being written up for insubordination. And I couldn't believe it. I was pissed off. I was like, how is this happening? Like, I'm taking care of the guys. Why is this crap happening? No one had the courage to approach me on this and say, hey man, you're making our lives difficult. You're doing this and this is the consequences that are happening. Like, can you rein it in? None of that happened. And I found myself in the office. Um, and I left that meeting and I knew at that point, like I needed to make a change one way or another because I didn't realize that my actions were affecting others on so many different levels. I just wanted to take care of the blue shirts that I was working with. I wanted to train, I wanted to have fun, and that's all that mattered to me. And that moment, I started to realize, like, all right, you need to start doing some things a little bit different. And part of our professional development, at our department, we're fortunate that we have a huge professional development program of classes that we are required to take. And one of those is LDDM, Leadership Development Decision Making at IFSI. And I was written up for insubordination in February of 21. October of 22, I find myself in the LDDM class, and my world changed. My world changed. I sat in there realizing that I needed to be on a different path, not really sure what that path looked like, not really sure how to achieve certain things. And then I'm sitting in this class with LDDM, and they're going through the lines of education on morals and ethics, and history and traditions, and communications, and professional developments, and all these things. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to be a part of this stuff in my career to accomplish these goals, set up these goals and realign that. And during my time down there with, as you experienced, the small group discussions, and then we had to do the SimX where we're running mock fire scenes and things along those lines, I gotten pulled out of class. We're mid simulation. Chief Moore pulls me out of class, and right away my mind goes to, what did I do? Because I mean, those that know me, I'm pretty vocal at times. I will say things that I wish I could get the words back after they left my mouth. And he pulls me out. And right away, my first thought is what did I do wrong? Who did I offend? Did I say something stupid that now I'm in trouble? And Chief Moore looked at me and he said, you made quite an impact on people down here. I said, "Oh, okay." And he told me, he said, there aren't many times that, people have references in the way that you're getting referred to me by. And we like what you have to say. You're very forthright on your growth, on how you were. You have an idea of what it is to be an officer, and you're trying to right your wrongs. Would you want to join our cadre down here and join staff in teaching? And I was absolutely floored that I was asked to do that. And of course, I jumped on that opportunity because the best way to evolve as a leader, as a firefighter, as an officer is to teach. We retain, 90% of what we teach, we're going to retain. And I've been doing that program for a couple of years now. And in that meantime of doing that, of getting on the right track for my insubordination write-up, right, I have realigned myself to my mission of my organization is number one. That guides all of my decisions when I'm working. I'm not one to bend the rules or break the rules. Like we wear our uniforms. My tattoos are covered up when we had our tattoo policy. Um, I carry the line that we are expected to carry, and I should have been doing all along. But it took me some time to come to that realization, and since then I've gotten my bachelor's degree. I've gone on to do different trainings. My time with IFSI has grown now. I'm doing the Red Under Fire program as well, and my network has just exploded with different people to be able to call up and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or I got this going on, or hey, there's this leadership seminar, in August. Would you guys want to attend it? And guys are like, yeah, let's go do this. Like it's been such a blessing for me to see that, to keep my passion and my drive alive, and also proof that you can change if you put forth that effort. I mean, the path that I was on, I was heading towards, at some point either demotion, maybe even termination if I didn't change my ways. And looking back on it, I'm grateful that that moment happened because I needed that smack in the face to realize, like, all right, you idiots, the organization is bigger than you. There are others that are affected by your actions, and you need to start to do your part for them and for those that you lead because you're doing no good for anybody else but making everyone around you just miserable by taking care of the people on your shift.
Yeah, I mean that's
So that's kind of my
powerful.
journey of where
No,
I'm at. Yeah.
I, it's interesting. Like it's a contrast in a way, and to a lot of messages that are out where, you know, and I'm not. Everybody knows you can control what you can control, right? And I think a lot of people will take that and go, well, I'm just going to focus on the handful of guys at my station on my shift. And when you put those walls up, sometimes that doesn't make things better. It just kind of puts a band-aid while there's still plenty of other wounds other places. And I haven't really
Oh,
thought
for
of it in
sure.
that way before. I mean, it's
You know, as
easy.
as as you take care of them, I mean, the SOGs, our operating procedures, are the box that we have to operate within. You can take care of your people by operating with inside the box, right? I mean, but I wasn't doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I was blatantly just, oh, here's the box. All right, toss that out. I'll do whatever I want to do in my station because it didn't matter. As long as the guys like me, that's all that mattered to me. And that was such an ignorant and wrong mindset. And, and make no mistake, where I'm at today, I know the growth that I've made. I know the accomplishments that I've been able to achieve through my, setting some goals and going to classes and my school and stuff like that. But, I burned some bridges with some people that hang on to that a little bit. And it's going to take some time. And, that's that there, I can't control that. All I can do is just do the next right thing for my organization, for my shift. And as long as I'm aligned with the mission and I continue to carry myself with, an attitude of trying to be of help to others and to mentor and develop those that are coming up, then, I'm okay with that. But, it doesn't come without challenges for sure,
Yeah.
and it can be discouraging, but sometimes you just have to realize that, the ripple effects of your actions early on sometimes will haunt you for days to come, and you just got to ride that storm. And who knows how the future holds with it, but I'm going to keep just trudging along.
Well, and I think that that's probably the best way. I mean, so firefighters, what we're people of action, right? So we always feel like we can just do something, right, to fix the problem right there. You know what I mean? And like even if it's making a mindset shift, even if it's changing, your approach to things, and like we want instant results in a way because that's kind of our arena for the most part, right? When we go out in the street and we do what we do, like you can make a direct impact almost immediately, and then you're
Yeah.
you're good. But it doesn't work that way in the personnel world, in the relationship world, and like I think that's why a lot of LDDM. So I didn't talk about it really on my show yet, but Mike's alluding that I just went down and saw it, and one of the videos was the "It's Not the Nail" video, which is hilarious, by the way, if anybody's never seen that, because like that's how we are, is we want to fix things, and sometimes you can't just fix stuff right away, like and it takes time. So it's hard, right? I think a lot of people would share that situation, right? Myself included, right? I've definitely burned some bridges. I've definitely said and done the wrong thing, or I've approached situations wrong. I think that's just human nature and its behavior,
Yeah,
especially.
mistakes. Yeah, absolutely. Mistakes are going to happen, right? I mean, everyone at times has looked back on something and be like, man, I wish I would have done that different, or I wish I wouldn't have said that. And, sometimes they're worse than others. I mean, like I said, I have a couple guys on my shift. One guy in particular that was in class with you. I call him like my mini me. He's a young me, and I just tell him like, man, if you want the roadmap of what not to do, just sit down with me and listen. I can give you all the tips to make your life easier by not doing these things. And it's growth, and growth and
Yeah.
maturity. And people say as you get promoted, you change, but I don't know if it's necessarily you change. I think you just mature. I think your lens changes from what you're looking through, right? As a fireman, people are looking at what's on the street and how we respond, and we need more manpower, and we need this. And as an officer, you're looking at how you're taking care of your people within the box. And then as a chief, you're looking at how you take care of your shift. And it just your lens gets bigger and bigger, and sometimes the priorities shift a bit. And so I don't think it's necessarily people change as they get promoted. I think they mature a bit and they're just kind of look at things from a different perspective.
It's a paradigm shift for sure. That's
Yes.
really the biggest thing, right? And like no one's at the end of their career the same as they are in the beginning. It's impossible, right? It's a 30 something years. And for people that were part time before, it's even more than that. Like you're nowhere near the same person. It's just that growth along the way. It's yeah. It's tough to live in it, and then but like you were kind of saying, you weather the storm. You own up and don't hide from stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing though, is having that accountability and that ownership of like when someone says, "Well, you used to do that," and it's like, "You're right, I did do that," but it didn't make it right then, doesn't make it right now. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, I may have gotten away with it a couple times, but it caught up to me.
yeah, yeah.
So it's one of those things of like just having that accountability. I know that I made some huge mistakes. I know it, but that's kind of what forced my growth and kind of me to look at these, from a different perspective. And it is what it is, and I'm only looking forward from here.
Yeah, and again, shout out to LDDM. Usually, I if I go to a really really good class or something, I try to do a special episode where I talk about it, and I felt like that would have devalued that class because you have to go in cold, in my opinion, with that
I
class.
agree with you.
You and I talked about it, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to really enjoy it. And I loved it, and I'm pretty sure what was it? Chris Adams is in the chat, and he said it's the best class he's ever taken. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. Even if so, for both spectrum, I don't know if you've noticed this as an instructor for a while, but I I noticed at the firefighter level, you got people on both ends of the spectrums. You've got people that are super passionate and hot, and then you've got people that are very timid and mild. And LDDM pulls what's needed out of both sides of that. Like it challenges people in a way, and maybe don't give away all the secrets, but maybe share a little bit about that class too for some
So
people that have never taken it.
as the curriculum is built in a way that we're not really instructing. We're just guiding a conversation to let people kind of evaluate what their thought processes are on things. And um, it's not a class that people sit in and say, "Oh, my chief should be at this class," or this guy in my department should be in this class. It's a class that kind of forces you to look at your career and what are you doing for your organization, or what can you be doing better for your organization and for yourself. And um, it is teaching the RIT program. I go back to the hotel physically exhausted. The LDDM program sends us back mentally exhausted because you're in that learning space of having to critically think quite a bit, and it does it's draining. So I always say that LDDM program is that mental exhaustion of going through that stuff, and I recommend it for everybody. I think it should be a must go to for every firefighter from early on in their career to officers to chief level. I mean, it's a phenomenal program and what it was able to accomplish for so many different people.
Yeah, it really is, and I'm going to try to throw it into the chat because for those of you, I'm sorry, yeah, it's Chief Leonhardt. It's leadership development and decision making. I'm going to try to put a link in our chat in case people are interested in it. But yeah, and that's a good quote. Kara Smith says, "We all grow up and realize what dumbasses we were." Show me someone who's in
Guilty.
right. Show me someone who's lived some life that doesn't look back and go, "Oh," with one or two things that they've done, right? And even in the short window of the fire service, there were definitely I remember, and I'm sure you could echo this too. Things that you did as a 2-year fireman that you can look at now and go, "Why were we doing that?" Like uh, I don't know. Maybe give me some examples. What do you know what I mean? Even just tactics and skills that have completely changed.
I mean, with fire behavior, the research that's going on now with fire behavior, just things have changed. I mean, now that we're having the science behind what is occurring has really just kind of altered how we're fighting these fires. And um, yeah, it's crazy to think how things used to be and how the buildings were and what we're doing now and responses and our gears changed, the whole nine yards. I mean, our air packs. It's crazy how things just continue to evolve.
Yeah, and we're able to really occupy spaces that differently, and one of the things from LDDM was revolutionary and evolutionary, right? Like how those changes can happen pretty quick. We're living in some of those, like with ticks and some of the tech that they're bringing with that now. But
But yeah, I was just fortunate to kind of, being a part of IFSI, it's kind of cool. You get to see some of that new technology that's coming out. And the research that they're doing for our profession of, cancer to nozzle reactions to, SCBA inspections. I mean, it's crazy all the different things that they're starting to try and put some data behind to support why it works or why it doesn't work. And it's pretty cool.
Uh, so let's talk about IFSI a little bit. So before you were instructor, do you feel like you were exposed to IFSI? Do you feel like you were part of it, like as an Illinois fireman?
Yeah, we our training budget, we're fortunate with that as well because we can go to these classes. And I went to fire college a couple times. Um, then I went to fireground company officer. I went to RIT under fire as a fireman, and then 12 years later, I went as an officer, and I brought down three of my shift members. So those are looking to go to that class. I think that's the way to go. Get a company officer, and three of your firefighters go down with you, work together as a crew, and um, just suffer together and have those victories together as well. But I was exposed to it and loved every minute of it. It's a phenomenal campus down there, and with the grants right now, Illinois firefighters get to attend, I believe, free for most of the classes, which is awesome. So you're paying for room and board, but it's another way to network and get to know people and different departments from across the state. And it's even getting recognized across the nation now. I mean, there's a booth at FDIC. They've got a Rent Under Fire FDIC where people are coming from Indianapolis down to Champaign to do a couple day class to get exposure that way. So it's bigger than just, Illinois at this point. But yeah, definitely there was some exposure to it, and I was aware of it before I had gotten down there.
No, that's awesome. And the reason I asked and kind of framed it in that way was like I did Explorer College when I was a kid, and then it just fell off the map for me, to be honest. Like it just wasn't, I don't know, it was not part of the routine. And I feel
I
like
think
I
I think
missed
a big
out.
part of it is NIPSTA. I think a big part of it is NIPSTA.
Yeah.
We got NIPSA on the northern area. We got Romeoville that put on a lot of great classes, and people are going to go there for a lot of classes before they would drive down south to Champaign.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big reason why I think up in this area, IFSI isn't as prevalent. But however, they are doing a basic firefighter academy now, I believe, up in the Antioch area
Yeah.
through IFSI.
I don't know the exact details of it, but yeah, I think that they're up in there because I was teaching their part time academy before IFSI came in and did their thing. So I really don't know much about it, but yeah,
Yeah, I
they're
don't know
up
much
there.
about it either.
So you took a bunch of classes. How did it like transition to a point? Now you said obviously Chief Moore pulled you out with LDDM. What else were you? Do you just teach those two, Rid Under Fire and LDDM, or did you teach anything
Yep.
else?
Nope, those are the two programs that I've gotten involved with.
How'd you get pulled out and join the cadre for RIT?
So when I was there with my crew as an officer, Chief Walsh mentioned to me like, I did well leading the crew and hard worker and kind of mentioned, when you get on staff here, let me know and we'll get you hooked up and just right place, right time, man. As I look back on everything, just how blessed I am to have it occur the way that it did of the LDDM group getting into IFSI and then the RIT group. The stars just aligned for me. And I'm so thankful for it. And everyone's been so welcoming with it that it's awesome to go down there for those weeks. And just as I'm teaching, I'm also learning, which is awesome.
Yeah. So what's the like makeup of the groups? Both of them. Like obviously that's two very different instructor cadres, but um, what's like where they from? What are they mostly firemen? Are they what's kind of the chemistry of those groups?
Everyone's firemen. So we have people on staff from, New York City for RIT, Milwaukee, a lot of suburban departments, Chicago. LDDM is a lot of chief officers, fire officers, firefighters from area departments in Northern Illinois, Central Illinois, Champaign area. I mean, we all over the place. People have different backgrounds of where they come from. Some are retired, some are currently still working. But at the end of the day, every one of them loves the job, believes in the curriculum, believes in what they're teaching, and that just makes it so much more enjoyable to be around people with the same level of passion to just kind of swap stories and just sit and listen.
What's it like? So, I mean, you mentioned earlier, right? And I'm in the same world, right? Of a small suburban department, right? And doesn't burn a lot. And then you show up and you're alongside with like Bob Hoff. Like, how did you deal with some imposter syndrome with that? Or How long did that kind of last until it felt natural and like basically, hey, we're just all here together?
I think you just have respect for, who they are and what they've accomplished in their careers. And um, they love teaching. So to hear their stories and how they were able to do certain things. I mean, to be a part of Maydays, to understand how guys handled certain personnel problems in their firehouses and things like that. It just enhances your learning by listening to those stories because they have those exposures on such a bigger level than what we do. And it's just neat. I mean, the couple of the people on RIT are Milwaukee firemen on some busy companies up there, and they're listening to their stories, and it's just neat to just kind of hear how it is
Yeah.
and their brotherhood of how they, are there for each other and how they train and how they conduct themselves and how they're confident in their skills and the whole nine yards. Is just sit there and just listen to them.
What do you think that networking has done for you personally and professionally?
It's giving you a phone. I mean, it's giving you the ability to call someone, reach out and say, hey, I got this going on. I mean, the promotional process right now, I've reached out to the LDDM group and they're, offered up all kinds of support and how, to study together. There's a couple of other instructors who are in their promotional process with their departments. And we've kind of been chatting here and there a little bit on different things. And we just want each other to succeed. I mean, we want to build each other up and just help everyone achieve their goals. So that networking part is just there, just having a resource to turn to that is detached from your organization, that doesn't know your organization, doesn't know the players that be, that you can just objectively have a conversation with, and they can give you some perspective on what your next step should be. That's been the biggest thing for me.
And I mean, since you've gotten that networking, have you've noticed a shift in yourself and how you've grown and developed?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I having that network kind of forces a bit of a pause at times. You know, kind of see, what someone would say or do on something like that. I mean, we had a fatal fire St. Patrick's Day last year, and we had a hard time getting, one person out because, we're trying to remove them, and we got her out. Ultimately, sadly, she had passed, but I right away was like, how do we do this? And I picked up the phone, I called someone and said, hey, man, you're on a busy company in the city. When you guys come across a victim, how are you removing them? He said, we're using the girth hitch with some webbing, but not a big piece, a short piece. And here's what we're doing. We're doing the rodeo wrap. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, thank you for that. So that's kind of that network part of like, hey, we have some of these, we've identified some of these challenges. How are you guys doing it to overcome it? And not saying that, you know, every answer I get is the right way, right? It's just one way to do it. So back to our previous conversation, coming back and saying, hey, not saying this is the way we have to do it, but this is an option that we have to make a victim removal if we had to. And it's kind of paid out that way and being a positive thing for me of just having some people to talk to.
Yeah, and I like the information kind of just sells itself then if it makes sense, right? You don't have to sell it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we identified this in a fire. We had some struggles with it. This is a way that we can overcome it. Let's see if it works. And
Yeah.
I personally, I adjusted my webbing and my gear for that purpose.
Yeah, I changed everything the last couple years out of some of the classes that I've been taking and the search things that I've been doing. It's yeah, being like faster and more mobile and quicker when you're blind. I think that's one of the biggest things that I picked up from RIT was like you can't see anything and everything you do should basically be one or two actions
Yep.
to
So
package
my
somebody.
gear, my gear is set up for the rescue of myself, the rescue of a brother or sister, or the rescue of a civilian. Like, I know some people that have like a multi-tool in their pocket and they got this big device and I don't know, you lay on your left side long enough with the multi-tool in your pocket, it starts to bruise your leg. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I keep one thing in each pocket so that way I know when I go in that pocket, I don't have to sift through anything. It's right there. And my gear is 100% set up for those things. It's light and it's just easy to manage for me. And
Yeah,
it's just kind of
so
how I have mine set up.
do you do so each pocket's a specific thing, right? So like now you know you're going to reach to this pocket for this.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I keep my cutters in my chest, where the radial pouch, used is, but we don't use our radios in there, especially with the new information saying we got to protect them. But my cutters are in there. I was a diver for a long time, and we had this triangle that we had to get our cutters out. So left hand, right hand, I could reach it, and that's where I keep it. It's interesting. I always tell guys like train your gear or set your gear up and train with it the way that you want to use it. And one of our guys had the webbing in his radio pocket, and he did the daisy chain.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, "Hey man, do me a favor. I said, close your eyes and deploy your daisy chain." Because I thought I was going to catch him. Like, you're going to
Yeah.
pull the wrong end. And sure enough, pulls it out, does it exactly how it's supposed to do it. And he goes, "I have it set up this way for a reason." I said, "Congratulations, that's awesome."
Done deal.
Like
Yeah.
he set his gear up. Now some guys will have their daisy chain webbing in their pocket. They'll pull it out. I say, "Close your eyes and deploy it." And at that point, they struggle with it. And I'm like, this is, so you can have your gear set up how you want. Just make sure that you train in how to utilize it to your advantage. And with the cutters, it's to make sure they're oiled up and that they open and close real easy. Because a lot of times people don't touch those things until you need them, and then it's rusted shut, and you're using both hands to try and open them up. And it's just those are the things that you kind of learn going through some of these classes.
What are some tools and things in pockets that you've seen succeed and fail in RIT when you've been teaching RIT?
We don't use anything for tools for RIT. You use the air pack that they're wearing.
No, I know that, but I mean,
That's
have you
it.
seen students? I'm saying try to bring out some of those things and bring them into the class where they haven't been
I mean,
successful or have been
they
successful.
have. Sometimes you'll get some webbing pulled out to help make a removal of a down member, but for the most part, and as you know, we preach stick to the basics of air straps movement. If you do what we show you, you will be successful, and we stand by that. So we're trying to preach it in a way that kind of eliminates their need to grab those extra tools and different devices to try and make their stuff
I
successful.
mean, that's good. That means people are listening. I was curious if you'd if watch people like try to throw hasty harnesses and do all that other stuff on people, but yeah, I remember, yeah, when
Yeah,
I
they usually
was
try it one time and it doesn't work out very well.
well, so we did one, and it was a girth hitch, and it was to drag somebody through a sonotube. That was the only time we used really anything out of our pockets, and every other thing we didn't need it.
Yeah, air straps movement.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
So with RIT, how long have you been teaching at that program?
Oh, maybe just under 2 years, I think.
Okay,
Yeah, relatively new to the program. Yeah,
and then when did you go through as a fireman?
2008 or nine, I believe.
Okay, how
Yeah.
much has changed in terms of the curriculum and the presentation of it in that time span to like now?
I mean the movements all remain the same. Getting a down member upstairs, downstairs, out a window with a pack on, out a window without a pack off. I think our equipment's changed more than anything else. The RIT packs are constructed differently now. The air packs have, with the new standard, with our, UEBSS, buddy breathing stuff. I think that stuff is more evolved than what's, the class has, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What's like awesome, like someone just reacted in like go mode and did something pretty cool that you've seen, meaning like I'm trying to phrase this a way that makes sense, but what I've noticed in that class is obviously there's out of left field stuff that you either recognize it and fix the problem or you don't. Have you seen anything as you've been instructing or that you while you were there that really took you back that you noticed like a student doing?
No, I think that the most rewarding part for us is watching the crews working together as the teams jive as the week goes on. Once they get their bearings of what it is that's needed, and then to watch them succeed and get those wins is awesome because you could tell when those crews start getting that, the high fives, the smiling like, man, we just did that. Because as you know, it is physically exhausting to do those things. And when you're able to successfully, get somebody out, that's a win, and it makes everybody feel good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, that Friday, the high that you get after Friday is unlike anything you've ever seen. Like, we're
It's
fellow.
a labor intensive. Yep,
Yeah,
it is a class that will test you to your physical limits,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
why I love it.
yeah. I couldn't suggest that anymore to anyone. It's one of those ultimate test things. I mean, it's incredible.
And that's what's great, so you're put in those positions and you hit that level of stress, and then your body wants to react to it, but it's training you that when you get there again, you can operate in that. And the LDDM program is kind of the same way, is it stresses you to that moment where you're like, oh my God, I just had that just happen. You said the aha moment.
Yeah.
And then you realize like, all right, I've been here before. Like this is how I got to handle this situation. Your brain recognizes those stressors and goes into that. So it's conditioning you to be able to respond under unfavorable conditions.
Yeah, I dude, a great parallel. You're right, because like two obviously different things. One's a mental, and one's a physical. But yeah, both of them push you to that point where you're like, okay, I've been here before. I know that maybe I wasn't successful, or maybe I was, and you can reflect on it for the next round, right? Or for the
And a
next
lot, and it
time.
slows down enough. It slows you down enough to say, all right, what I did last time didn't work. Let me try it this way now
Yeah,
and see if I get a different outcome.
yeah, for sure. You had you guys were talking in LDDM that the IFSI was looking at like sauna cancer research, and obviously, like they're years from being done with that. But I was it was interesting to hear you kind of talk about what they were doing with the RIT instructors to kind of start working on that. Maybe you could share a little bit of that just so people are aware that that's what's going on over at IFSI.
So they're trying to determine, and I don't want to misspeak on this because it's
Yeah, I
the
know. I'm
research of
sorry if I'm putting you on the
what they're trying
spot,
to, no, no,
but
no, but what they're trying to achieve, but they want to determine, like, can they detect cancer in firefighters before it becomes actual cancer? And they also want to be able to determine, is there a way for us to shed these carcinogens that are leading to cancer? So they wanted some people to be test subjects to have to be a part of the study to see if this stuff works. And part of the research they're looking for funding on right now is just that, is having the instructors who are doing these burns throughout the weeks for the students to have us utilize saunas to see if our bodies are shedding some of those toxins that we're being exposed to. Um, and that's what they're kind of working on right now. So it's in its infancy stages. They delivered it to us the last class, and everybody unanimously was pretty much like, "Yep, we're in. This is pretty cool for us to do." And it's these researchers. It's a big deal. I mean, there are some big name people that different medical doctors, toxicologists, departments of health from different areas. It's a big project, and the researchers down at IFSI. I mean, they love firefighters. They love the fire service, and they want to do what they can to make sure that we are protected and safe. And that's what they're trying to achieve with this.
yeah, it was pretty cool to hear that they were working on that, and then what a great opportunity with how much burning happens at Rin Under Fire, to use that as an opportunity to get information. And I think most firemen are kind of all about the whole sauna thing and just want to know if it really works. I mean, we were trying that at my department, and I don't know, it didn't catch much traction, but
Yeah, we don't have anything like that. But hopefully they'll be able to determine something to say, hey, yes, this is a good thing, or no, it's not. I mean, who knows? We're just,
yeah.
I kidly said to one of the research, I'm like, is this what the monkeys feel like in an outbreak? Like we're just being tested by all this stuff. But it was all good fun. But they're great people, and they, like I said, they really care about trying to determine this stuff because of what cancer is doing to all of us in this profession.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things that I found interesting, and you don't have to obviously share the whole story, but it was cool to hear that you got the RIT guys that are super passionate about that, and now you've got researchers coming in that are full bore, just nerds about the science behind it, and obviously you can't share the exact story, but maybe share some parallels that you've noticed right between their passion for what they're doing and the instructor's passion for what they're doing.
Oh, it's the same passion. I mean, we believe in our curriculum that we're teaching. They believe in the research that they're doing. So they want to do everything they can to make sure that with the product that they're researching, they can provide evidence that this does work. And then we're trying to be prepared for our curriculum and training so that way what we deliver, keeps our firefighters, safer when there's a down member and helps them develop, their decision-making skills. So it's the passion's the same. It's, and they hung out with us, they had dinner with us, and they hung out on the grounds with us, got dressed and went into the fires with us. They were awesome. They were just smiles and like, this is great what you guys are doing, and to be a part of it. It was the parallels were right there with each other, just different kinds of work.
No, it's the coolest thing. I love passionate people talking about what they're passionate about, right? It's just always cool to see that click. Like, even if you have no idea, it sounds like they're speaking Chinese, but like they're just into it. Like, there's just something palpable about that.
Yeah, you could hear it in their voice and how they delivered it to us of how much they genuinely care.
Yeah. I wonder if I was gonna say, I wonder if they get made fun of back at their school for caring about firefighter sweat. You know what I mean? Maybe in the same way that some of us take heat for being nerdy about being into the job, but it's just kind of funny. But Todd Rish is in the chat. He says that they got saunas in Elk Grove Village, and I can tell you, post fire to get rid of toxins. It helps. They sweat the crap right out. So yeah, Todd, they're looking to really prove that with some science and give you actual data on it. That I think she said that they were like working on something in Australia. I think was the only other place, right? Didn't I hear that correct?
Yeah, you're talking about the doc that was in LDDM giving her
Yeah, the one that got
portion of
up and
her
spoke to
research
us.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there, different researches and stuff like this. So I'm not really sure what study she was chatting about.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a lot, and obviously, unless you're like that's what her job is, right? Is to research and collaborate and all that other stuff. But
It's just crazy the amount of work that goes into these projects to make sure that everything is consistent and how things are being conducted. It's and that's why they wanted to meet with us because they wanted us to ask all kinds of questions like how does it work when I'm on a suburban apartment that gets a couple of fires a year and this guy's on a busy truck in an inner city that's getting a couple of fires a week. Like how do you guys manage these different levels and stuff like that? And these are all the questions that we were asking them. And they're like, these are great questions. So they were trying to dive into all that stuff of how they're going to approach it. But the fact that they even take notice on to what cancer is doing to us and our profession is amazing. That they're trying to figure out how they can protect us and is there ways to mitigate some of this stuff,
yeah, I
lessen
mean,
the dangers that we're exposed to.
yeah, and generationally, like it's a good thing, that we're and I feel like they're trying to be realistic about things too. Like I know they put that thing out about removing your turnout gear in a certain way with the gloves, and then like I get it, but then I think they also frame that differently. Like we know that not everyone's going to do it that way, so maybe let's try to make it a more approachable way. So now it's like, take your mask off last and then bring your hood all the way over. Like I feel like they're trying to find a happy medium, right? To
Yeah,
make it
but you
more
got to also
approachable.
yeah. So taking your gear off, and then we're going to go roll the hose that just was in the building, and then we got to go clean the tools up and the air packs that are in the seats in our rigs. Like it's don't get me wrong. I mean, it's all important stuff to identify, washing our hands, wiping our faces off with the fire wipes and things along those lines. Um, it's one of those things of just taking the steps, showering shortly after the fire,
Yeah.
to having two sets of gear if you have the ability to do that, swapping out your hoods, different gloves, things along those lines. I mean, the steps that you can take on that, can help with that stuff. But not everyone's as fortunate to be able to do those kinds
No.
of things.
No. No. Yeah, you got to really have someone that either is like lead of a PPE committee, or you got to have an administrator that really is into that stuff and is going to put it in place, right? To stack the deck in your favor, I guess is what it is, right? Like you can't
Yeah.
eliminate our risk, but at least try to stack the deck a little bit. I didn't think we were going to talk about cancer. That's kind of funny that just comes up, but
Yeah. Curveball.
uh, so we talked a bunch of IFSI, right? And we talked about that kind of instruction. Let's shift back to shift life. And so what's as a lieutenant, what do you look for in your day for shift training, for your personnel training? What are your goals and how do you frame training?
Oh, I'm lucky. I have got some hungry guys on my shift that want to train. I mean, they want to force the door, they want to throw ladders, they want to get their engineering stuff done. I'm blessed. So they're always asking, hey, can we go out and do this? Hey, can we all go out and do that? And it just makes it simple for us to be able to do that. So yeah, we definitely try and achieve that shift training. We do have a full-time training officer that puts out his schedule that we do throughout the week and then balancing out our con ed and things along those lines. But yeah, training's important. I mean, that's where we get to demonstrate our skills on the scenes. And um, yeah, like I said, I got hungry guys that want to throw ladders. And the other day, we did some ladder training, and one of the guys goes, "Hey, let's do a VEIS drill." I said, "All right, what do you got in mind?" And he said, "All right, well, you're going to walk up to the 28, and we'll be masking up to, as we're going to go do a VEIS, type scenario." And like just kind of throwing in that little extra of masking up with your gloves on and getting ready to go and climb the ladder and talking about how those different things are going to go down. Like it's just awesome to be able to watch your younger members coming in that are hungry because it just helps facilitate that growth.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, do you guys have like work hours? And do you guys? I mean, it seems. I mean, in my experience, the hungry crew doesn't give a shit about that stuff, and we'll go out and if it's 5 o'clock and we're hot and we want to do something, like we just go do it. Do you feel like that's kind of the vibe that you have right now?
Yeah, we do. We have some guys that have no problem doing that kind of stuff, but you got to also balance out, you do have your work day.
Yeah.
So recognizing that, you might have three hungry guys, but a couple may just want to be able to go relax after the work day's over. And you got to find that balance between those kinds of things. But yeah, our work day is from 7 to 4. We're fortunate that we can work out throughout the day whenever we would like, as long as, our rigs are squared away. Training's been, it doesn't interfere with training or any sort of pub ed and responses, but our days are kind of ours to manage and get our stuff done. So we do try and train daily. Right now we got some guys that are new engineers. We're going through our process of engineering. So we're doing a lot of flowing off some water and pulling some hand lines and kind of working through some of that stuff. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to kind of watch these guys come in and do this.
Yeah. So who would you say really drives the training? Would you say that it's you, or would you say it's more of your crew because they're hungry? Like,
I think it's probably 50-50.
yeah,
The lieutenant that's also on my shift that is at the opposite station of me, he's very similar to what kind of my thought process is on training and making sure our people are good to go. So it's just kind of become our mentality on our shift is just kind of getting some stuff going and doing things. And when training doesn't go very well, we identify it and we try and correct it and just hone in on that. So yeah, I think it's driven both directions. It's driven by, the training officer who puts out a schedule. It's driven by, the officers who know that we got to accomplish certain things with the engineers, and it's also driven by the firemen that are like, "Hey, I want to go do this," and we support them on it.
yeah. Well, what would you say would be like like either a word or I don't know a way to describe? What would you say would be the most important element to have for like a good training?
A good training,
Yeah.
I would say competency. Train so you can't get it wrong. You aren't going to have people that say, "Hey, I'll do the job when I have to. I'll rise to the occasion." That's just a bunch of crap. I mean, you're going to revert back to what your training is. And when you can train to a level of competency, you're going to be better off. So I think that's the biggest one is competency. So many times we'll just get through a drill because we just got to get through it. And that's not really the purpose of it. Like let's train so that way we can learn something from this. Whether it's stretching the hose and getting the couplings to the front door next to the nozzle, or throwing the ladders up and figuring out what our different reaches are, and the obstructed raise, and or it's doing airbags and just getting the airbags out and kind of lifting some things around and trying to play with those different things and cribbing. Like it's just getting us our hands on our equipment and becoming better at it, because there's nothing worse than being on the scene where we're not as good and it just struggles. And who suffers? It's the public.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, yeah. If you mess it up there, like that could be the ultimate issue. you know.
Yeah. And you got guys, so we got guys that go to a lot of classes too. So they'll come back and I'm like, "Hey, what'd you learn?
Yeah.
Like, show us something. What did you learn in this class?" And it's neat to see that stuff because you got to embrace it.
Yeah, because there's always something out there that you can only be exposed to so much of the fire service. Like you're talking about networking, and I mean that's one way to do it for sure, and it's essential I think for firemen. But like listening to people when they come back from classes is another big one for sure.
Yeah, my big thing is I want to encourage them, right? If they come back and aren't asked what they learned, or they might run into the challenges of delivering it in the wrong manner. So if we kind of had it all, help them out by saying, "Hey, what did you learn? Show me." That kind of helps them share what they learned, and helps deliver it in a way that, it's us asking for it versus them telling us what it is. So it kind of helps with that stuff too, you know?
So is that kind of like your approach when maybe somebody comes back from a class and you come up to them and say, "Hey, what'd you learn?" And we want to know. Maybe you can show us, or
Oh
how?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll even text them throughout the week. Like, hey, how's class going? You know, oh, it's going really, really good, you know? Things like that. We just had a guy go through smoke divers, you know, he was talking about the different things with that. And it's just, like I said, you have to kind of just keep your people kind of how they're doing and what is that they can bring back to us.
have you in your career? Have you noticed in your career like a negative uh, uh, response to people coming back from training, and like what have you kind of done to either negate that or kind of like push it aside and let that guy come back and feel good about it?
Um, I wouldn't say there's negativity guys come back from classes. I think just negativity just in general that occurs in organizations, you know. You try and do your part to carry the message and carry on with your day and just not really give it attention. Easier said than done, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But you know, sometimes people are just who they are. I use the analogy that I might, you know, catch flack for, but you know, sharks have to keep swimming no matter what because of the oxygenation through the gills. They stop swimming, they die. And I believe that there's some people in the fire service, if they were to stop complaining, they might die.
Yeah.
Just with the amount of negativity that just they continue to spew. And you know, that's just is what it is. But I don't want that to affect me and affect my day and what I'm trying to accomplish and um, try not to let it infect my shift and the people that I'm working with. We try and just carry on with our day and by training and staying busy throughout the day helps, you know, prevent some of that stuff.
What's funny, I actually kind of thought when you were talking about sharks needing to swim, I was thinking on the other end of the spectrum. Like I was like, oh, dude, I feel like I need to be doing something to improve. On the flip side, and I guess it was a weird parallel between some of those people that can be
Look at
that
that paradigm
negative,
shift.
right? Versus like,
Yeah.
to me, I look at like myself like it can be a negative because I can, you can run out of gas if you're not doing it, in a way that's healthy. But yeah, I thought that's where you were gonna go with it for a second. But either way, yeah, I know that like negativity in the fire service is everywhere, right? Like no organization, no group of people is are sole owners of that. And you could talk to firemen all over the country, and they would tell you the same thing. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles for passionate people is to get pulled down in that because you feel like you've got to fix it or you've got to correct it. From my own personal experience, like I grew up in a culture of the fire service, and when things aren't that way, it aggravates me. And I know that the way to kind of get past that is to not let it, right? And that was one of the things that I don't remember if you said it or somebody said it in LDDM. It was like you have to learn. What was it? It was something about without self-destruction, and I wrote it down, and I can't remember. Perseverance without self-destruction. I can't remember if it was
Oh,
you or Matt
no, it
said
was
that.
Matt.
And
Matt said
like,
that.
what a line to think about, right? And to take a second to think before you speak, because it's so easy to get sucked into that, for sure. But yeah, sorry, I went off on a tangent. That's not fair. We're
Yeah,
here.
no,
We're here for you, not for me.
no, it's just a conversation, bud.
So
But yeah, that passion's important though, man. Like it's easy to when that negativity happens, it's easy to just kind of get sucked into that group think mentality a little bit. And when you branch out, you know, you find other people that are passionate, you know, you kind of share some of that stuff and some of that drive and you know, you find people that, you know, you look to that kind of guide and mentor you throughout your career and that you consider people that kind of molded you a little bit, you know, and you try to achieve some of that stuff. And it's just helps you stay motivated, you know.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And one thing I think that I've learned is you have to find the right people to let off the steam with. You have to have like and keep it kind of tight. Like that's one thing that I've learned. Like you got to keep it a smaller group that you could be like totally unfiltered about what you're stressed out about.
Yes,
And
totally agree.
yeah, I think that's kind of one of the bigger challenges is to find that group. And I almost wonder if it's healthier for it to not be in your own organization. But
I was just going to tell you that I would think it shouldn't be in your organization because again, that that objective response to what you're saying, they don't have any sort of opinion on the players that are being, of the frustrations that are there because they don't know them. They don't know your organization. So when you have someone outside your organization that doesn't know it and you can vent like that, it allows that, that unfiltered ability just to be heard and validated and just kind of allowed you to just to get it out. And then they can say, all right, look at it from this perspective without having any sort of preconceived notion on what is going on because they know that those people.
yeah. Uh, Culturally, so you guys kind of went through not maybe I guess you could call it rapid growth. I know that you guys hired a lot of new people in a pretty big chunk, right? Because of how your staffing changed. Um, Climate and culture, right? We'll kind of hit in that. Have you noticed a shift climate wise with a bunch of new blood? And then are you seeing some cultural impacts that that's going to make or is making long term, right? That you're kind of seeing the seeds of now.
I our organization is accredited and has been since 1998. And part of that process is just that continuous self-improvement and the evaluation of given the information of why things happen and why we do certain things, we have to provide the information to the assessors. And in doing that, by looking at that process, we have a great training budget, we have tuition reimbursement. They provide us time off for classes. They have professional development of the classes that we need to meet. So our culture is that, they're investing in our people. They truly are. They invest in our people. They believe in our people. Our chief, we set the bar of what we want in our personnel, and we are able to provide feedback on our probationary members that are, you know, meeting what we feel is appropriate. So our culture and our organization is a positive one. They're doing a lot of great things that I truly am just blessed to be a part of. I mean, listening to other departments and what they have and what their training budgets are and their benefits and things like that, we're in a really good spot. The climate, when you have so many new people, and we were short staffed, we went through a real negative time because there were so many force backs daily. Guys were getting forced to the point that we were trying to do it 3 shifts in advance to allow time for guys to figure out how to manage their home life with their children so that way they could fulfill their force back obligation. And it was a hard time. I mean, guys were getting burned out. And then we finally got the staffing up. We reduced our requirements to just having EMT, and we'll send you to the academy and we'll send you to the paramedic school. And we got more people and we got some people on now. So we're back to our staffing where we should be. There's another spot that we got to fill. But it's a good energy having that new blood in there because it's rejuvenated some of that hunger and that drive for classes and achievements. And looking at the future leaders of our organization is awesome to watch them. And I just want, as you see that, I want to increase that climate and be there for them to help mentor them and coach them. And as this process is posted, I said to all the guys that aren't eligible to test, I said, hey, every test I've taken since I've been in this organization has had building construction in the test. Every single one of them. Start reading these books now in building construction because type 1 construction is the same in Brannigan's book as it is in the Jones and Bartlett book. Like type 2 is what it is. Like start reading these books, understand construction. So that way, when you do take the test, right, you're able to, maybe not focus as hard on that book. You can focus on the other books and being a part of that. And like Jimmy Theobald said to you on your cast about fire behavior and building construction, those are the two things. And, those are the books that we're reading right now for our promotional process. So that climate is there, and you just want to do your part to continue to mold it and increase it. Easier said than done sometimes. I mean, sometimes things just get rough, and sometimes that negativity is in there, and you have your bad day. I mean, it's going to happen. But overall, our culture and climate, I think, is a really positive one.
Yeah, I mean, you actually you said something very important with that, and it's you can't be perfect every day fighting negativity or choosing to be positive about stuff. Like it's not easy, and we were kind of talking green room and before a little bit. It's like you can make the choice to deflect some of that and not care, but ultimately, like you care because you're passionate, and it's suppressing that's not easy, right, in that moment, and you're gonna have good and bad days. So I appreciate you saying that because it's the truth. Like people need to hear that side of it, that you can't be 100% happy all the time with everything. That's not possible.
No, yeah, it's just yeah, that's absolutely impossible. Everyone has their good days and their bad days.
Yeah.
It's just a fact of life, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so with that new blood coming in and everything like that, have you noticed like where some of that has maybe reignited someone that wasn't burning as hot as they used to, having young people come in and want to train and want to be part of things?
I think so. I think people realize that some of that new blood coming in, that may one day be their officer. So I think it has kind of motivated some people to kind of start doing these things. But again, we have a whole professional development model of the classes that they're required to take. So it's kind of one of those things of the roadmap is already there.
Yeah.
They'll pay you for it. They'll send you to do it. The roadmap is already there. So they just got to hop on that road and just kind of execute what's already in place.
Oh,
But yeah, you have seen some of that shift though, people wanting to be a part of training and things like that, and to keep up with some of the younger guys.
that's great. I mean, I definitely, I'm in my own organizations having issues with force backs, kind of where you're at, right? And that's very, very difficult to be in that moment. And we're not alone in that. That's a lot of the county. You guys just are happening to be ahead of that curve, I guess, where you're already through it. But I, it, I've always been a person that believes that like training can draw the good out of people. And I was just curious if that was kind of pulling some of that with new guys coming in and wanting to train.
Yeah, I think training also builds camaraderie on your shift. And another thing that's kind of built some of our camaraderie is shift workouts. You know, us doing workouts together is kind of like, brought some of that closeness in and some of that laughter and joking around and doing different things. It's been enjoyable to have some of that.
Do you guys have like off-duty stuff? Like I don't know. Like example, when I grew up, my dad, they all played softball together every Thursday in a league. Like, do you guys do stuff like that?
I think some guys do. They have a couple softball leagues.
Okay,
Yeah, me personally, I don't play any of those leagues or anything like that.
sure.
But we'll do things as a shift together.
Yeah,
A couple guys got some boats. We'll go out in the water with that together. We do our Christmas party together, and got a group chat. Kind of going back and forth. But there is a certain level of closeness among a lot of our newer guys of them hanging out and doing a lot of things together, which is awesome.
yeah. No, that really is awesome because it's not as common anymore, right? Like, I think that's one of the things that people complain about in the fire service is that we're not that way and we don't do that kind of stuff. So it's good to hear that it's alive and it's working, even if it's a smaller group. Like,
See, I do think it's still there in the fire service. I just think that it's as you grow in your career, right? The younger groups are friends and they do a lot of things together. So I think that brotherhood's still there. It's just different when you become an officer and when you become a battalion, you're kind of a little more removed from that stuff because it's a different time of your life.
yeah,
When you got young kids, you can't just go out and go hang out all day long and do things because you got to take care of the kids and be there for the family and things like that. So the brotherhood is definitely there. I see some closeness of some of the people we have in our organization. Those guys are real tight together and doing a lot of cool things.
that's cool.
And then they
Yeah.
just went paintballing last week together, a bunch of them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a couple of our guys are starting to play rat hockey again and get out. So it's starting to make its way just doing stuff together. And it
I just get nervous of breaking a bone. I don't.
well, that's why we're playing rat hockey because I mean people get hurt playing rat hockey. But
I went snowboarding with one of the guys and broke my wrist, so I said some time off there. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should be a little more cautious.
I don't know if I can do that anymore. And I'm not that old, but man, that snowboarding beats me up. It's because I'm not good at it. That's really what it is. I just fall all the fucking time.
I
But,
love it. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. I absolutely love it.
Not when you break a bone.
No, I would admit, yeah. So you said we were kind of talking about how we were things we were going to talk about. Leadership was one of the things, and I know that's a super broad topic. And I was trying to think of more specific questions, but we've been talking about LDDM, we've been talking about shift training, we've been talking about a lot of those things with leadership in general. I want to kind of maybe step outside of that. So, what are some things that you've learned about leadership outside of LDDM and maybe some of the classes that you've taken or, company fire officer? What are some other resources to learn leadership and reflect on leadership?
Oh man, I love podcasts. I love military podcasts. Jocko's podcast is great on extreme ownership and listening to him. Sean Ryan shows another one where he'll have a bunch of different people on talking about their military careers and some of that leadership stuff. Um, those are the big ones for that stuff and then just reading books. Reading different books kind of helps with some of that leadership stuff. McCraven's book, Lessons from a Bullfrog, that's a really, easy read. It's got a bunch of different things in there, little quick chapters of leadership stuff. One of our books for a promotional process that we have to read is Seven Habits for Highly Effective People. It's another great leadership book that I'm kind of diving into. Um, it's leadership is one of those things that you have to continue to fuel that fire to maintain it because it's easily forgotten. I wouldn't say forgotten, but it's easily kind of like cast aside a little bit. And it's something that you have to, that I have to put a conscious effort forward for to make sure that I'm trying to be there for others. And through that is through ownership and accountability and just that humility of kind of realizing your mistakes and moving forward and doing things different to try and be that example.
Would you say that it's a natural skill or a learned skill? Leadership.
I think probably both. I really do. I think it's a bit both. Sometimes, I'm a bit selfish at nature at times, and to try and take that step back to put other needs ahead of mine and to be there for them. Like back to the training thing, I'd rather, maybe sit down and take care of some stuff on the computer, but nope, guys want to go train. So get up and go out there and give them a hand with that kind of stuff. And I think of those moments to just kind of be reminded on them. But I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do think it's a learn. I think you could learn leadership. I absolutely believe that someone can learn leadership.
But I kind of get where you're coming from too, though. That there's got to be at least a core of something, right, to latch on to. So coming from a little bit of military background, right, and maybe a little bit of exposure to that. Um, we always say that the fire service is a paramilitary, organization and all that. What are some assumptions that people make about being paramilitary that really aren't reality in the fire service?
I Yeah, I mean we're paramilitary based off of our ranks and our names, but it's through the authority, but we're far from the military when it comes to consequences and accountability and things along those lines. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. But you needed to have that rank and that structure just based off the history of the fire service to identify who's in charge and things along those lines. But I think it just pretty much comes down to the titles, for present day.
You said accountability. Could you elaborate on that?
On for accountability for the firemen, so that as firemen have to answer to somebody else, they have to, to the lieutenant has to answer the battalion chief has to answer the chief. You have to have some sort of a rank structure in there for accountability when things aren't going right. But we have to have ownership of that through when something doesn't meet the expectations or something isn't carried out the way that we wanted it to. We have to be accountable to that and why it didn't get carried out that way.
Yeah. So I guess like what difference in the accountability between military and the fire service? Are there differences between that, or are they similar?
I think with military, it's so much more rigorous and structured to the point that um, there's true discipline and consequences for not doing something. And whether or not you're in the branch on the East Coast or the West Coast, your branch has the same rules and values that have to be executed and the same way of doing things. The fire service, your climate culture is different at your department than it is at mine, and we have our own certain unwritten rules that are accepted. In the military, you don't have that. It is what it is. So I think when it comes to that part is kind of some of the big differences with it. Now,
Yeah.
me personally, I've never served in that, so just me listening to some of the
Yeah.
podcasts
Yeah.
and
I
kind of how
know.
things go, and listening to those accountabilities where someone didn't do something and then they had to go move a pile of rocks from one part of the lot to the other part because they messed up as a team type of a thing. Like there are those kinds of things that occur in the military that just doesn't happen in the fire service.
So I guess like so obviously like accountability is a good thing, right? And it's needed for really any organization to be successful. So we can't handle things in that way in the fire service, right? But what are some things that we can do in the fire service to hold people accountable to a standard or to our oath or that kind of regard, right? Because obviously it's different. We know that. What are some things that we can do as in the fire service to hold people accountable?
I just laying out the expectations. I mean, to say that this is what we expect. This is what our organization expects. This is what the battalion chief expects. This is what, I as an officer, as your lieutenant, expect. What do you expect of each other? And then when something doesn't happen, sometimes it's just a conversation. And it could just be that disappointed dad type conversation of like, man, you really disappointed me in what you chose to do. And leave it at that. But other times you got to follow progressive discipline. I think it all varies on the different situations, but I go right back to training and we can always retrain on something and continue to go through evolutions until we can get it to a level of proficiency. So, I mean, those are some of the things that we can kind of do because you can't tie pay into, our discipline. You can't, at my level and even the battalion level, you can't, give guys days off. And you got to have some egregious, actions for someone to achieve those things. But sometimes that discipline just comes down to like, hey, we got to get X, Y, and Z done. If they didn't do it, we have to hold them accountable and say, hey, we got to get this stuff done. So it's a bit different than the military, but you got to get kind of creative with it a little bit to explain why we needed to get things done.
Yeah, no, and honestly, that's why I was asking the question because it does take some creativity to still have accountability in our world because it's different. Obviously, it's different.
Yeah, and you don't want to have an organization or a environment where paperwork is just thrown all over left and right. I mean, you've got to be able to empower people and through checks and balances to verify that they're doing what they're doing. And sometimes just that disappointed conversation with someone, is enough to get them to realize like, man, I dropped the ball. And, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, so where would you say like some of the line would be like where a senior man handles that versus a lieutenant? Like, what are some things where there is kind of that line because we have that in the fire service that's different than maybe the military. Maybe it's not.
I don't know if there's a line. I think it's a matter of sometimes things just aren't brought to my level and they just kind of handle it. And then you hear about it afterwards, you're like, oh, okay. And then you just kind of in one ear and out the other type of a thing. But then other things you hear about, you're like, well, no, you have to do something. So I don't really know where that line is because it's just so dynamic on that.
Yeah.
But I do know a lot of our firemen do handle things at their level. And then, sometimes people step out of that line a little bit and, they're reminded of it of like, hey, that wasn't a cool move. But like I said, our firemen are pretty close knit. It's pretty neat to see that they take care of each other and even firemen as a whole are kind of with the LDDM program, we're starting to see that shift that firemen are there for each other. They're willing to hang on to some stuff to make sure that they have each other's back.
Yeah, I think like that is kind of making a comeback in a way. Like, hey, we handled this as blue shirts. I know that like or not interview questions, but like when you take, well, it's been a while since I've taken a pre-employment exam, but it always seemed like they were geared towards the opposite of that, and they were trying to make sure that they didn't get people that would handle it at our level first. And I feel like that's making a comeback. I see it. I see it for sure that maybe sometimes to our own detriment because firemen are pretty good about doing that kind of stuff, but there's also a lot of good with it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And a lot of times, they kind of create their own little, not hierarchy, but they have their ability of handling things at their level. And sometimes you just let it be.
Yeah. I think I asked in LDDM one of the jokes I made and half serious, but like was what's the modern equivalent, the 2024 version of a blanket party? It's like what's that now? Because obviously nobody's doing that. Like that's not gonna solve anything. But and nobody really had an answer for that. And I asked that at the kitchen
Yeah,
table
I don't know what it would
at
be.
work, and it was a fun conversation. It was more of the like, it's still a group going, hey, are you okay? I think was more of the way that it was being delivered instead of, hey, you're screwing up and you're screwing all of us. It was just a different way that it was framed, where it was still like holding them accountable for being that. But it was more supportive. It was like, hey, you're messing this up, but we're going to get you to a better position so you don't screw us. And I was like, that's a really positive way to handle that. Like, versus bars of soap and socks, but
Yeah, I don't know what the equivalent would be.
yeah, I don't know either. And maybe that's a good thing, I guess, but It was just a funny
That's funny.
observation, but um, well, I guess we can kind of start rolling into and it's not a quick thing, but the closing questions. So don't think I'm kicking you out or anything like that. And once again, I always want to make sure I remind people if you got questions for Mike or he said something you want him to elaborate on or whatever it is, throw it in the chat. We'll ask him and we'll roll with it. You guys are as much here as I am. So, but for now, we're gonna kind of move into the next thing. So this is a new question that I threw in thinking about you coming. So it's what's the best training or class that you've ever participated in?
The best training or class, I'd have to say RIT and LDDM,
Which
hands
which,
down.
which RIT though? When you were a fireman or when you were a lieutenant?
When I was a lieutenant,
Yeah. And was
because
there
the decision making part of it, right? The physical exhaustion, the stress of being there, and having to still kind of command your crew in those environments of being exhausted, um, was very rewarding to be able to get to that point and still achieve that. So yeah, I had a lot more fun because I appreciated it more as an officer.
was there like a defining moment that made that class like a scenario that you were part of, a success you guys had, a failure you guys had? Was there like a defining for when you went down and you took RIT as a company officer?
Yeah, we had an evolution. We had to get someone up the stairs, and the first RIT ended up going out of service because they were just done. They couldn't go on anymore. So we're all inside and we're thinking, all right, they're going to call this evolution now because the other RIT's out. And the instructor looked at us and said, "What are you guys doing? You guys are the only RIT. Get them out." And we had to complete the evolution with just the four of us, and we successfully did it. And the feedback we got from it was pretty cool. The instructors were like, "We haven't seen anybody do that, what you guys just did, and you guys did it very, very well." And it was just neat to be able to have that moment with, the guys that I went down with.
What was the dynamic? So were you on bottle two or were you on bottle one when you found out it was you guys and just you guys?
I don't recall.
Okay.
At the time we had 45-minute bottles, so I think we were still on bottle one.
Okay. All right.
I think.
Well, that gives you a little more time to work. I mean, for sure. I feel like everybody's got half hours now. So,
Well, everyone's got half hours now, and our new standard is the 33%. So we're getting like 9 to 12 minutes of working time.
yeah, it's dude, I don't know if I told you, but I had 5500 PSI bottle and I never had a full bottle the whole week. Like
Yeah,
it,
those are some of the challenges they're
it was
identifying with those 5,500 PSI bottles.
although I will say it made us work in a different way, which was good. Like I was basically the tip of the spear and I just basically ripped through stuff and then I sat back and I bird dogged our way out and just like box breathed or whatever it was to just keep the bottle. And I took a couple bumps off the rip pack while we were, or off the second rip pack. So I honestly, like at first I was like, fuck, I'm screwed this whole week. Like I'm going to run out of air. And it ended up being good for me because it made me find another way. So it was pretty cool. But that's cool though, that you guys got somebody by yourself and you just did it. Like
Yeah.
to me, that's what
But
that
then,
class
yeah.
is.
So that's a great moment for the class, but then the LDDM class of just having that aha moment on my career. So like it's hard to put one over the other, to be honest with you. Um, because RIT challenged me physically, but like LDDM saved my career.
What
And
was your
that's the truth.
what was your aha for LDDM?
Just as a whole, I mean, the
Okay.
professional development part for me of recognizing that I needed to have some goals, working towards some things, the command philosophy of the organization, carrying the mission, like everything that we do is guided by our mission, what our purpose is in our organization. So realizing that the way I was holding myself and conducting myself wasn't aligned with that. Um, I wasn't networking with, my fellow lieutenants and other shifts, and just realizing that I was on the wrong path. So having that aha moment of like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be was just enlightening for me to say, all right, now I know where I'm at and now I know where I got to go. So for that moment was just neat to have that. And that was even before Chief Moore, approached me.
Yeah.
I was already like realizing like, all right, this is what I got to be doing.
And was that it was just pulling that out in the conversations that you were having? And because obviously I didn't take the lieutenant one, so I don't really, I mean, I know it's similar, but it's also probably a little bit different than the fireman one. But
It was the conversations.
Okay.
It was being challenged on some of my decisions and my thought processes. You know, it was just the self-evaluations of what, my core values were when we do that, the paperwork of what are our values and identifying what do those actually mean to me and realizing that some of it was just lip service, but now it's just evolved for me and changed in a way that has truly aligned me with it. I wholeheartedly believe in that program, what it did for me and the potential that it can do for others. It's awesome. And like I said, it single-handedly, my insubordination and then that class saved my career and put me on a completely different path.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, really, that having that aha or reflection is something I think everyone needs, or maybe not needs, but like it forces those moments that force you to really like you that class. I'm trying to phrase it without explaining the class because again, I don't want people
Yeah,
to
it's
really know
you
everything.
can't you really can. I mean, it's an experience. Someone just needs to experience it.
Yeah, like have you ever had to double down on your decision? Really, that's kind of what it is, right? Like there's moments in that class where you make a decision and you say you're going to do something, and then you're presented an opportunity where you're questioned on it, and it's like, do you double down on it, or is it as right as you think it is? Like that's the part for me that was great about it. Is it like you were kind of saying it tests your beliefs, it tests your are your core values just lip service or is it real? I know I can't talk too much about it because it's not fair. I don't want to ruin the integrity of the
Yeah,
class,
it's
but
like I said, it's an experience.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
I was looking at my journal the other day, so in class when we have to journal, and I was going through my paperwork from previous classes and that I've taught, but I have my journal always with that stuff. And one of the pages I opened up to, it says, "You're doing everything wrong. Change it." And I started laughing to myself, like, yeah, it just reminded me of that aha moment because that's when I wrote that down. Is you're doing everything wrong, change it.
I think
And that was my
I
journal.
have one that said you're an asshole. Because I definitely reacted that way with one of the scenarios, and like one of the firemen, not even an instructor, like totally called me out, and I looked at him and I was like, "Oh my god, I am an asshole," and I just sat there silent for like a good like, and for me to be quiet is pretty hard, but I
That
sat there
makes two of us,
silent
yeah.
right for like maybe 2 or 3 minutes, like true time, 2 or 3 minutes, and it was Ricky. Ricky got me, man, and I can't remember the instructor, but they were looking at me like, "You get over there," and I was like, "Can I like wipe this and start all over?" They're like, "Yeah, go ahead." So it was kind of funny
Yeah.
in the way that it worked. It was a weird. That was my aha, but
But you asked me about those two classes, and then another thing that's been really good was years ago I went to FDIC, and that's just some people call it Fisty Fest, whatever it is, but man, there is so much things to learn there and to absorb and be a part of, and to see what our industry and our profession is doing is that was also another great time. It's kind of my goal now is at least do one class a year and try and get to different seminars. And next year I'm going to try and get to FDIC and to be a participant there, not through IFSI or anything like that, but I just want to go down and take some classes and just be a part of the whole environment again.
yeah, dude, they're stepping it up too, man. They're really going heavy on search and and tick use in search and VES. Like they're really leaning into fire rescue survey stuff, and they're really putting a lot of classes that are I think are shifting some people's mindsets. I've taken a lot of really great stuff there, and I've wished that I could have taken more than an 8 or 4 hour version of those classes because. But that's your opportunity there. Like I can't travel to
Yeah.
Kansas City, you know what I mean, randomly to take a 2 day class. So yeah, dude, I couldn't echo that enough. That's been a part of my life since before I was in the fire service. So FDIC is awesome for sure. Uh, cool. So we've kind of talked a little bit about mistakes and learning from them and everything. And one of the questions is what's one mistake that you've made and you've learned from? I'm a big believer in speaking about those things and being open about the mistakes that you make. So if we've already talked about it, that's fine. If you want to talk about it again, or if there's something else that you can think of that's a mistake that you've made and learned from.
Well, I kind of touched on it a little bit. Like realizing that the organization is going to go on despite what someone's objecting to. And then what I mean by that is that I didn't wear my uniform shirt, right? At no point did my organization say, man, that Mike guy, he's on to something. He's not wearing his uniform shirt. We're going to change our policy now and we're taking away uniform shirts, right? Or we had a tattoo policy. We had to cover our tattoos up. So I wouldn't cover my tattoos up. And at no point did my organization say, you know what, he looks good with tattoos. Let's just get rid of the tattoo policy. Like it never happened. It never happened, yet I was being defiant. And in the end of it, it made me look like a complete fool. It made me look like, just this bratty child, this, officer that would behave this way. And the organization never once caved to it. So the lesson learned is that if you want something changed, propose a change, but abide by what is in place right now, and we can change it. I had someone approach me about wanting to get station shoes. They were wearing them in the station. I said, dude, you can't be doing that. Well, this is stupid. I said, I don't care. This is what the policy is. Well, he gave me 25 minutes conversation on why we should have station shoes in our stations. And I said, hey, dude, put it together in an email. Put together a proposal for our organization to say, these are the reasons why I want this. I said, let's present it. Let's do it the right way. However, in the meantime, please put your other shoes back on. This is what we're supposed to do. So that was a lesson learned that I was, because I was that guy that would be in my station shoes, pushing the envelope, not caring what the rules were. And, it burned me. So I learned and it grew. And now it is, all right, you want to make a change? Let's make the change through the proper channels and not just do it through defiance. Because at no point did any organization, I mean, I'd be willing to bet no organization's ever caved to someone just being defiant to say, we're going to give him his way. And that was one of my biggest lessons on those things and that's kind of what I try and tell my people, like, the ones that I work with, of like, hey, dude, I know you don't like to follow this certain rule, but at no point is the organization ever going to abide by what you want based off of you just not following the rule. So that's kind of one of my biggest lessons learned is that one.
Dude, I love that. Yeah, it's totally true. Yeah, you hear people all the time, all over, not just in either of our organizations, anywhere. Go, that's fucking dumb. And then you're like, okay, well, are you gonna change it? Like, well, no, that's just stupid. I'm not gonna do it. And it's natural, I think, for some of us to do that. I don't know, maybe not everyone. I grew up a punk rocker, so it's kind of my default to throw middle fingers and. But yeah, to handle things in a better way usually works, because
softer way.
Yeah, right, a softer way.
Yeah.
That's a good way to phrase it. Have you ever lost your passion for the fire service? And if you did, what'd you do to get it back, and what keeps you passionate?
I would say I never lost my passion. Sometimes life just evolves in a way that kind of takes you away from some of the extracurricular stuff that you want to do with your job. But anytime I go to a class, I just get re-energized. I mean, I saw you at the Al Schlick training day, right? Great speakers, great presentations. It just re-energizes, the passion for the job. I mean, even a one-day seminar will do it for me, or a week long down in Indianapolis, or attending to go take a class. I mean, just networking and being a part of different departments, and it just makes you realize, what our job is. And guys will sometimes complain about a job, and I'll ask them, like, what other job out there do you get paid to work out, get paid to sleep, get paid to watch a movie, get paid to go play Call of Duty? Like, what other job out there allows you to do that? Wash your truck? Like, our job is pretty good to be able to afford those kinds of opportunities. And sometimes people just are unhappy, and unfortunately, it just kind of is what it is. But this is the greatest job in the world, and I wouldn't even consider doing anything different. And it's crazy to think that I'm 19 years into this journey, and it's at some point it will come to an end, and I know that. But I just want to try and enjoy it while I can.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. If you wanted to give someone a sense of how fire service culture should work by meeting one person, who would it be? So this person can be alive or dead. You know them, don't know them personally, whatever. You're going to take someone that knows nothing about the fire service, and you're going to put them with one person to show them what it's all about. Who's that person going to be?
One person. I would say culture of the fire service would probably be like an inner city firehouse. Just that the job town department that runs those fires, and they have that brotherhood of knowing that, they're going through all that stuff together. I mean, I think that would be the culture of it, the camaraderie, the ball busting, the meals together, the training, the whole 9 yards. I think that would be it. I did a ride along in Chicago, and I was on the west side, and the way those guys welcomed you into their firehouse, I mean, they wouldn't let me pay for food. They wouldn't let me touch a dish. I mean, they said, "You're the guest. You just hang out, man. Just take it all in. We got everything." And it was just a different ambiance that was there. And they were a busy fire company. They did a lot of busy work that, they had that opportunity that just allowed them to just be firemen, love the job. And when you have those kinds of firehouses that allow you to get your crew that you want, and if you don't like that crew, you can transfer to a different firehouse. I think allows you to get that A team for what your climate is in that firehouse. So I don't think it's necessarily a person. I think it would probably be a very large department could show some of that stuff. But that being said, you also have your shifts, right? And when you get your crew with your shift and you get a good crew, right? You still have that camaraderie, that ball busting and them being there for each other. But I think it's just that culture in general, just by people that have passion for the job and enjoying the work that we do.
That's a good answer, man. Yeah, you're allowed to go rogue. I emphasize the one person, but I like that answer. So not
Yeah, I
that
can't I can't think of one person.
that's okay. No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Uh, all right. Last one. Best part of the job.
Best part of the job, man. The job as a whole has provided me so much. I mean, for not only just like, a stable income, but like opportunities outside the fire service. I have a background in safety where I work for a company doing safety inspections and confined space rescue, and having that opportunity there, but then also the doors opened up with IFSI. So like the best part of the job is just the doors that open up and the possibilities. And when Rick Lasky, prior to ownership, talked about like, go a job out there where you could walk into someone's house and they hand you their baby and say, "Take my baby," and you walk out of the house with the baby. Like having just that innate trust in us as what we do for a living, and the doors that open up, I think just puts us in a different world of professions out there. And I think that's probably the best part about it is just what we're able to do and what we're able to accomplish and still be able to, survive and live our lives. That
Preach
kind of
on.
makes sense.
Yeah, preach on that one, man. Yeah, yeah. Well, you got one more bonus question because Shayna's throwing us a flyer here. She's asking,
Oh,
are we
good.
going to hear the Chicago ride along story? And are we? That's a big drink of water. All right, let's do this.
All right. So Pete Van Dorp was Battalion 14. He became the chief of Algonquin Lake in the Hills. I went to a class with him, where he spoke, and I said, "Hey, I want to do a ride along with Chicago. How do I do this?" And he gave me his information. I went down and rode with the battalion. There's a guy that's on truck 32. His name was John Mogan. John Mogan is also a part-time fireman on Grays Lake, who I knew when I did time up at Grays Lake. John was at that firehouse that was in the battalion of Pete Van Dorn. So I did a ride along with Pete one day. We ran around. I got to kind of see how he did things as a battalion chief. And at the time, I wasn't an officer or anything along those lines. I just, I was a fireman. And he said, "Hey, truck 32 is on a variance, which means that instead of them having 5 guys, they had 4. He said, you can go hang out there for the day and ride with them." I said, "All right, cool." So I rode with them. I got to know those guys a little bit. And then I became more frequent riding along down there where they were on a variance. John would give me a heads up and I'd go down and ride for the day. So this particular night, I stayed the night at the firehouse and we got called out for an ambulance assist in a courtyard building. And let me back up here. So John worked at Grays Lake, and whenever he would see guys like Condell, he would ask if I was working. And the guys would be like, "Oh yeah, he's back at the station." And John would tell him the story he's going to tell you is absolutely true. Everything he's going to tell you is absolutely true. So the guys would come back and be like, "Hey, tell me the story." So this is a story that I would tell them. So we go to this courtyard building. It's a 3-story. So you've got 2 sides, and you got the courtyard in the middle. We walk inside. The cops are there, and the cops say to us, or the truck company, "There's someone inside yelling for help. It's a barricaded situation. We need you guys to force the door." So we're on this stairwell on the top landing. There's 2 doors, one here, and one here. John's on the left-hand side. A guy named Bobby Herrera, who's has since passed away, was in front of the other door. Two cops are behind him, and then I'm along the wall with a guy standing in front of me, and then me, and then the lieutenant was behind me. As they force this door open, someone inside yells, "I got a gun. You come in here, I'm going to effing shoot." As this happens, John breaks into the other door and gets in that apartment. Bobby jumps down the stairs, impacts us. We all fall down the stairs as the cops are trying to draw their guns out to figure out what are we going to do with this now. So we all collect ourselves. We get outside of the building. We go into the courtyard, and we're sitting there talking. And we're like, "Where's John at?" And then you see John come around the back of the building down the alley. He comes out into the courtyard and he goes, "Well, that was kind of messed up." And I'm just like a suburban kid, right? Just kind of like, what is happening right now? Well, all the ambulances get there, SWAT team's there, and the one ambulance field chief says, "Hey guys, go back to quarters." He goes, "I don't need you guys here anymore." Truck 32 is an ALS truck. That's the reason why they called them over to this scene. So they released us, go back to the station. He said, "We got nothing going on here." And we went back to the station. My rule when I was down there doing a ride along was I couldn't go on the roof initially, and I couldn't be on the initial search of the fire units. That was the rule. So I could do other things, but I just couldn't be on those initial tasks. So we go back to the station, start going to bed, and all of a sudden, inside the station, there's also an engine company in there. The engine gets called to that same address that we just went to for a fire. A minute later, the truck's now toned out to that same address we were just at for a fire. We get there, as we pull up in the truck, there's 2 floors completely involved on the backside of this building. You see fire blowing out, the porches are going the whole 9 yards. The lieutenant says, they called me kid. "Hey kid, get the 35, we're going to the rear." So I'm like, all right, cool. I get off the truck. I go to the ladder. As I get off the truck, the cops are kneeling on this guy who's got bullet holes on him on the ground, kneeling on him, telling him to shut the F up. I'm like frozen. The lieutenant looks at me. His name was Chris Lopers. He's now retired. He says, "Hey, kid, get the ladder. Let's go." We grab the ladder. We go to the back side of the building. We throw the 35 up, and this thing is sailing. Second floor and third floor are just going. So some of the guys in the truck go in and start doing their search. We go on the side apartments over here that's not exposed to fire to go do searches on that one. As we're in there, conditions are not bad at all. Pretty clear. The big picture window lets loose. As the picture window lets loose, the unit is filled with smoke. We're now on our stomachs, putting our masks on to finish our search, and then go out. We get out. Lopers looks at me and he goes, "You good?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good. And I'm just having an absolute ball right now as this is happening." So after the fire's knocked, I go in for some overhaul. Pete Van Dorp's there, and this is one of the tricks that I learned with the box light is being a pointer. He brought me into a room and he took me, pointed the ceiling, and said, "Hey, you see the ceiling in this room?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "I want it all gone. Pull it all down." So I started pulling the ceiling, the whole 9 yards, having an absolute just blast doing this. Fire's out. They say to me, "Did you have fun?" This and that. Say, "Hey, you want to go to the roof and check out what we did on the roof?" I said, "Absolutely." So I go up the main ladder to the roof, go up top. They show me how they cut their holes and kind of what they were doing up there, teaching me these different things. And then we get off the roof. And now, as I'm going, they are comfortable on their ladder. They just walk down like a staircase. Me, I'm going down slow. So everyone's just watching me as I'm going down slow, kind of like clapping and just kind of poking fun at me as I'm going down this ladder. But we get back down to the ground and we get back to quarters, and the guys are like, "Dude, no one's going to believe this story." I said, "Yeah, I know. Here's what happened, and here's why people won't believe me." As SWAT made entry into the third floor apartment, a very large woman came running out of the apartment. As she was running out, the guy shot her. As the guy shot her, she fell into a cop who shot himself in the foot. As this went on, the guy took kerosene all over his third floor apartment and lit it on fire. Then jumped out of his window, climbed down the telephone pole, broke into the second floor and threw kerosene in there as well and lit that one off before the cops were able to drag him out. And then as obviously they ended up shooting him in the process of everything. They drug him out, and then that's when we pulled up as all this stuff went down. So as these guys are like, "Dude, no one's going to believe the story." I said, "I know." I go, "Does this stuff happen regularly?" They said, "No, this never happens either. This is pretty crazy for us too. And you got to be a part of it. So no one's going to believe the story." So that's the story of it. So when John Mogan was at the hospital, he would tell guys like, "Hey, that story's going to tell you everything's true. Here it is." That's the story of where it went down. And thank you to Shayna for dropping that one in on me. But yeah, I called up John and told him like, "Hey, I might bring the story out tonight on this thing." He's like, "Oh, I'll be listening." So I don't know if
Yeah,
he
that's
messaged you at
awesome.
all, but
I mean,
but
for it to be crazy for them, That's a whole new level
It
of
was
crazy, right? Like,
it was wild, but it was a lot of fun and a lot of lessons learned on that one. But yeah, and then Chief Van Dorp ended up retiring from the city, became the chief of Algonquin Lake in the Hills. John got promoted now, so he's on a different company. And yeah, that was my young time in the career in the fire service. A
no,
lot of
that's
fun.
cool, man. Thanks for sharing that. That's a cool. I mean, that's a crazy story for sure.
It was pretty wild,
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Well, all right, man. That's gonna make that's 35 episodes here. You're episode 35. We're all squared away here. So,
That's crazy, man.
anything else?
No, I love what you're doing. It's pretty cool to see you connect with some of the people you're connecting with and kind of giving some people some voices of our area,
Yeah.
some suburban departments, but at the same time, you're also getting other guys that are, fools members and kind of getting some different names in the group, with Chief Leidig and, it's just awesome to see you doing this stuff.
It's a fun experience for sure. I appreciate it, man. It's cool. I'm definitely enjoying it. So, thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm sure you didn't think it was going to be 2 hours, but we're pretty much at 2 hours.
Is it really 2 hours?
Dude? I mean, we're pretty much there.
Damn, I guess that's what happens when two guys like to talk, huh?
I told it's easy on here, so you just start talking about stuff you give a crap about. It's so easy. But yeah, I appreciate if anybody wanted to get a hold of you, maybe if they wanted to, I don't know, anything else. How could they get a hold of you if they needed to?
I mean, I work at Countryside. My email's on the website. If you want to put I'll text you my email. You can put it in the group chat. People want to chat with me. You can put my phone number out there. I'm
Yeah.
game with whatever.
Yeah, I can attach it in the comments or something like that. Or honestly, if anyone wants to get a hold of Mike, you can always reach out to me and we can make that bridge. So that's also an easy way to do it. So once again, thanks for listening or watching or whatever you're doing. And Mike, thanks again for coming on. It was fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good.
See you, buddy.